Hi guys, it's Oscrix. Today I want to talk about Herald of Agony and how that relates to the new Lycia bloodline ascendancy. So there's a node in the Lycia bloodline ascendancy that gives minions from Herald skills deal 1% more damage for every 1% of maximum life those skills reserve. That's a really crazy multiplier for Herald of Agony, assuming you reserve over 90% of your life. You're getting over 90% more damage from it. It's kind of difficult to solve reserving your life in this way, but I'll show you how I decided to solve it and make it work in Path of Building in a little bit. And then you've got another really good node on Lycia for this for Herald of Agony that gives it 30% fizz as extra chaos from profane ground that it stands on, you and your allies. Uh, so really strong ascendancy in general for Herald of Agony here for 2 points. Here's what I put together. This gear is really super endgame that you're looking at right here. And in general, I don't really think that I would play this build or even try to like play Herald of Agony on the first couple days. This is definitely like an idea for a character that you would re-roll into or farm the gear and then respec into if you're already playing champion. And yeah, by the way, this is on a champion. I decided to go champion because there's versatile combatant and some other good stuff down here. And you get fortitude and intimidate, or rather taunt for 15% increased damage taken, which is pretty good. So blood magic, that's the big thing to solve the problem with the Lycia bloodline. You need to get Herald of Agony to reserve your life. There's a couple ways to do that, like arrogance, but if you use arrogance, it gets a giant multiplier and you're down to support. You could put it in like a prism guardian, but that's kind of awful. Yeah, I think blood magic is the best way to solve this. This comes with its own kind of set of problems, though. The other thing, so you go blood magic, that means that you need to go energy shield to stay alive because you no longer have any life. You got rid of all of your mana. You reserved all your life, you have no mana, so you're basically stuck with energy shield at that point. So that means you have to wear a Shavs to make it so chaos damage doesn't bypass your energy shield and immediately kill you. And because you're playing Herald of Agony, for everyone who has never played Herald of Agony before, they use the golden rule to double the amount of poisons that you generate, so that way you get double the amount of virulent stacks which you need to sustain your Herald of Agony's DPS. But if you have poisons on you and you have Shavs and you're not, obviously you're not unaffected by poisons or anything like that, that means that your ES never is going to regen because, well, as long as you have a poison, because you're going to be taking damage over time, even though it's a very small amount of damage over time, that's going to stop your ES from recharging. So I think the kind of best way to solve for that is to go Zealot's Oath. But when you do that, then there's another problem, and that's because you've gone blood magic, so all of your skills have life cost now. And if you get rid of your life regen, then that's kind of like getting rid of your mana regen at this point. So the way I solve for that on here is by getting a life gain on hit, Watcher's Eye for vitality, so that way you're getting health back from your Ball Lightning of Orbiting that's hitting things, generating virulence and sustaining your life for your costs in that way. And I also have this node here, 20 life gained when you block, which is pretty helpful too, I think, in case you go randomly. This helps you also be able to pay your Immortal Call costs and stuff like that, cast with damage taken costs a little bit better while mapping, or potentially while bossing if you're getting hit by this too. So those are the things that I did to kind of solve the health reservation issue, and you can see that it is a pretty big issue, but it's definitely worth it. I'm reserving 92% of my life, so that's 92% more damage. That's character power that you don't get from basically any ascendancy, so pretty ridiculous. And you can see that the DPS here is really good for this level of gear. All the rares are basically perfect ES gear. Some really good uniques, really good unique jewels, grand spectrums. This is like a week 2 kind of character, I think, for most people who play the game a lot. Definitely not something that I would think about league starting, to be honest. I don't think that Herald of Agony will be strong enough until you could solve for the life stuff, and I don't think that in hardcore I could make the life reservation work early enough. But you might be able to make it work in softcore, if you care less about dying. And on that note, let me show you a little more, even more Bugatti BMW kind of POB than that one. This is like a Mage Blood POB that I put together just to show that you could, go like Aegis Aurora and go Melding of Flesh and Storm Shroud and solve for more defensive things. When you go Aegis, you lose a lot of energy shield, but you do gain a lot of armor and stuff like that, which helps the Fizz-Max hit, which is the weakest point of this build anyways. So yeah, you can play this on Mage Blade. You can see the DPS gets even crazier on this config, another 50 million on top of that. And if you wanted to go like super soft core and have less defense than this, like maybe you don't need this, maybe you don't care about like this jewel socket as much, maybe you don't want to have this, like you just got the ES from this stuff, then you could come over here and like you'd probably have to cut, yeah, you're gonna have to cut more stuff than this, but you could see that you could get like another jewel socket with more pure agonies. You could also go voices, like if you got really good voices in these sockets, you could do that. But you can see that just from 2 more pure agonies and a couple of minion damage nodes, you're up another what is this, like 60 million DPS. So this quickly gets out of hand as far as numbers wise go. I think that Herald of Agony with Lycia Bloodline is one of the strongest minions in the end game of this current patch now. And I want to show you also this POB that I put together really quick, which is a bit more on the like really mid gear side. So still has the life gain on hit, vitality, Watcher's Eye, and oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention it earlier, but the only reason I have vitality is because I have perfect Warlord Specter with vitality, and I also have perfect Spirit of Judgment for the Discipline Aura on this config as well. And I've also put in like some AG stuff on some of them. But this version of it, basically all of the ES gear, instead of being like perfect and having ints like the other POBs, I put in some really like 50th percentile kind of ES gear, just straight in the middle. Nothing has int on it. And you can see that the ES is pretty low, 6,600. But if you're playing in softcore, this would be, you know, a totally acceptable kind of thing to be doing, especially with like this level of block and ES. This would be totally fine in softcore to play at this point. And like this goes to show that like at level 88, you could be, you know, leveling this build as your second character with the Watcher's Eye and the other stuff, the cluster jewels that you put together. And, you know, you'll have enough DPS to be successful at clearing the red maps as you level your character and get the rest of the points and equip better gear and all that stuff. So you can definitely transition to this build as early as having the Watcher's Eye, the Shavs. I think the Matas is pretty important too. This is worth a lot of DPS to say the least. And then the cluster jewels too. So you kind of need all of the stuff that's really listed in this POB, this kind of lower gear level before you could start. I tried to strip away most of the stuff that you don't need from this. I'm going to put in the description of this video all of the path buildings I mentioned today, but let me also put a disclaimer that these are not supposed to be like finalized builds that I'm recommending you play or anything like that. This is just me sketching out concepts for characters. You know, I have not gone through meticulously and picked apart every single aspect of these builds, or, you know, made sure that my decision points were like perfect or anything like that. So yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for watching. I hope that you found this video useful and you're kind of interested in Herald of Agony a little more than you were before. Thanks a lot, dudes, and I'll see you later. Peace.